They came for me like they were on a mission from God. 4 of them, strutting up my driveway in matching polo shirts and mirrored sunglasses, the kind you find in a bargain bin at a gas station. Clipboard, walkie-talkie, laminated badges. This wasn't the police. This was the Desert Springs HOA. At the head of the pack, Linda Carter, president of the HOA, self-proclaimed queen of the block. A woman who smelled like lavender, entitlement, and the need to control every living thing within a 4-house radius. Short, sharp hair, arms crossed, that try-me smirk. You know the type. It was a Tuesday. I remember that. I'd just taken the first sip of my morning coffee when I caught their reflection in the kitchen window. My first thought? Jehovah's Witnesses. My second? Nope, much worse. I stepped outside. Didn't even get to the good morning part before Linda launched into a full-blown speech like she was standing on a courtroom podium. "You are in serious violation of HOA regulations," she announced. "And we are here to enforce immediate action." Immediate action? I blinked. This had to be a joke. But then she pulled out a laminated card and held it 2 inches from my face like it was the FBI. "This document serves as your official citation," she continued, "for unauthorized garage modifications, storage of an unregistered vehicle, and," she paused for dramatic effect, "behavioral misconduct within HOA jurisdiction." Now I laughed. Out loud. Couldn't help it. The garage? Same color it's been since I moved in. The vehicle? My registered 4x4 truck, parked exactly where it should be. Behavioral misconduct? Translation. I skipped the HOA's Thursday night potluck where everyone gossips about each other over dry casseroles. I was about to ask if she was filming a prank show when she delivered the punchline. "Due to your failure to comply with prior warnings," Linda said, "the HOA is now exercising its right to civil custody. We are hereby detaining you until the matter is resolved." I blinked again. "You're trying to arrest me?" I asked. "The HOA has full jurisdiction in this neighborhood," she said proudly. The other 3 nodded in unison like synchronized swimmers. And that's when I realized these people actually believed it. Unfortunately for them, they picked the wrong house. Because I'm not just another homeowner. I'm Marshal Ray Walker, County Marshal of Maricopa, Arizona. Sworn officer. Real badge. Real authority. Real jail cells. I've dealt with cartel smugglers, armed fugitives, and drug house standoffs. And now I was staring down the HOA's fake secret police. I smiled cool and calm. "Interesting," I said. "And how do you plan to arrest me?" Linda nodded toward her muscle. A guy who looked like he bench-pressed donuts. He reached into his pocket and pulled out plastic handcuffs. "You know, the kind you'd buy for your kid's Halloween costume. We have our methods," he said with fake confidence. I stepped back, slowly reached for my wallet, and flipped it open to reveal my badge. Gold. Shiny. Very real. And just like that, their fantasy collapsed. Linda's smirk vanished. The clipboard wobbled in the hand of her assistant. The guy with the toy cuffs suddenly looked like he needed a bathroom break. "Good to know you think you can make arrests," I said. "Because impersonating a law enforcement officer? That's a felony. So is unlawful detention." For a second, you could hear a hummingbird fart. That's how quiet it got. "WH, what are you implying?" Linda stammered. "I'm implying," I said, taking one step forward, "that unless you leave this property in 5 seconds, I'll arrest you. For real." Sweat started dripping. Someone whispered, "Let's just go." Linda's fingers trembled as she held onto her phony badge. Then they retreated. 4 HOA stormtroopers stumbling backward in defeat. "This isn't over," Linda barked, spinning around and stomping away with all the grace of a spoiled teenager. I stood there, coffee still in hand, wondering what the hell had just happened. But deep down I knew Linda Carter wasn't done. Not by a long shot. And if she thought this was her battlefield, she hadn't seen me go to war yet. When someone tries to arrest you with plastic handcuffs on your own property, you'd think they'd take the loss and crawl back to their HOA lair with a little shame. But not Linda Carter. See, the thing about people like her is they don't believe in losing. If they lose, they rewrite the rules. If they get exposed, they double down. And when all else fails, they throw a tantrum so loud the HOA echoes for miles. I should have seen it coming. The next morning, I stepped outside with a trash bag in hand, still half asleep, still riding the high from the previous day's showdown. I reached the curb and stopped. The trash cans are gone. I looked left, looked right. Maybe someone moved them? Nope. Gone. Vanished. Like they'd been abducted by sanitation aliens. And who just happened to be standing across the street, arms crossed like a smug gargoyle carved from HOA pettiness? Linda Carter. She didn't say a word. Didn't have to. Just flashed a smile. Not the friendly kind, but the kind that says checkmate. Marshal. Then she turned and disappeared inside her house. Mission accomplished. I stared at the curb, took a breath, and chuckled. So this was how it was going to be. Childish, petty, desperate. Bring it on. I turned toward the mailbox. Maybe I'd find something normal, like a coupon or a pizza flyer. Nope. Inside was a large envelope with the official Desert Springs HOA logo printed on the front, like it was a summons from the Vatican. I opened it, already expecting the worst, and it didn't disappoint. Notice of violations. Improper waste disposal protocol. Unauthorized vehicle location. Behavioral noncompliance with community standards. Mandatory disciplinary attendance required. Apparently, I was now banned from using neighborhood waste services, couldn't park in my own driveway, and was ordered to attend a community meeting to discuss my attitude. They actually wrote that. Attitude. I stood in my driveway, HOA letter in one hand, trash bag in the other, and just started laughing. This wasn't a homeowners association anymore. It was a cult, and Linda Carter was its prophet. I tore the letter in half, let it flutter to the ground like the useless garbage it was, and walked back inside. But Linda? She wasn't done yet. That afternoon, I came back from shift at the station and saw something weird in my driveway. A traffic cone, bright orange, right in the center. Next to it, a wooden stake with a laminated paper stapled to it. Garage sealed by Desert Springs HOA. Access temporarily suspended. I stared at it for a solid 5 seconds, trying to decide if I should laugh, call a lawyer, or start digging a moat. Then I walked over, yanked the notice off, and kicked the cone gently into the street like a soccer ball. And sure enough, there they were, 2 of Linda's minions, standing across the road with clipboards in hand, furiously writing things down like they were FBI agents. Removing cone. Note violation code 5, one of them muttered. It was like watching toddlers play CSI. Less than a minute later, she arrived. Linda Carter, storming down the sidewalk like she was leading a cavalry charge. "You can't do that," she shouted. I held the cone in one hand and looked at her. "Do what?" "Remove a plastic cone from my own property." "That's an official HOA notice," she snapped. I looked at her, calm as ever. "You don't have the authority to block my garage, Linda." Her face turned the color of her lipstick, angry red. "You're violating community law." "No, I'm violating your imagination." And then I walked inside and closed the door behind me before she could spit out another HOA commandment. The next day, I was at the station when I got a call. From Doug, my neighbor across the street, one of the few sane people left in this neighborhood. His voice was low, nervous. "Hey man, you might want to come home. There are 2 police cruisers outside your house." I paused. Did something happen? They said they got a tip, something about a man with a weapon. They're talking to Linda right now. So now she was playing the concerned citizen card. I dropped what I was doing and headed straight home. When I pulled up, sure enough, 2 patrol units, flashing lights off but very much present. And, standing beside them, Linda Carter, arms folded, face full of fake concern. I stepped out my truck. The officers turned, recognized me instantly. "Marshal Walker," one of them said. "Sorry to bother you, sir. We got a report of suspicious activity. Someone saw a man with a firearm entering the premises." I looked directly at Linda. "Let me guess," I said. This report come from her. Linda clutched her pearls like she was auditioning for a daytime soap. "I only reported what I heard, Marshal." Some residents were concerned. The officers exchanged glances, already done with this mess. "We'll log it as a false report," one of them said. "But just for the record, Ms. Carter, filing false police complaints is a crime." Linda's mask slipped for a second. Just a flicker. Her lips twitched. She turned red, then quickly folded her arms again, saying nothing. For the first time, she looked worried, and I knew exactly what she was thinking. This Marshal doesn't scare easy, and I wasn't going anywhere. I should have known the plastic handcuffs were just the appetizer. The trash can games? The cone? The false police report? Linda Carter wasn't trying to win a neighborhood dispute. She was playing a long game, and she was about to raise the stakes in a way that no sane person would ever imagine. It started at 6:45 a.m. on a Thursday. I was still in bed, drifting somewhere between REM sleep and dreams of coffee, when I heard it, the unmistakable beep, beep, beep of a reversing heavy truck outside my window. I sat up, pulled back the curtain, and blinked. A city-grade excavation team was parking in front of my house. Not one or two guys. A full team, wearing reflective vests, carrying clipboards, unloading shovels, cones, and mini excavators like they were about to build a highway through my front lawn. For one terrifying second, I actually thought, are they at the wrong house? Then I saw her, standing across the street, arms crossed, that satisfied smirk again. Linda, wearing a sun hat and sipping iced coffee like she was watching a 4th of July parade. I swear I saw lawn chairs set up behind her. I threw on a hoodie over my t-shirt, slid on my boots, and stormed out the front door. "Morning, sir." One of the workers greeted me politely. He was holding a clipboard. Always the clipboard. "We're here to start emergency pipe repairs," he said, scanning my yard. There was a report of a water main leak underneath this property. I stared at him. A what? A leak. Official request came in yesterday from the Desert Springs HOA. Signed by President Linda Carter. He even showed me the paper. Sure enough, there it was. Her name, in bold Sharpie, written like she was Caesar, signing a war order. I looked at Linda. She was pretending to admire a nearby tree. I almost applauded her performance. "There's no leak here," I told the guy. "And even if there were, neither you nor the HOA have legal authority to dig up private property without city orders." He blinked, looked down at his clipboard, then back at me. "Well, we're already here." I reached into my jacket. Slowly, no sabemos, pulled out my badge. "And I'm a marshal of this district," I said. "So I suggest you pack it up before this turns into a trespassing charge." To his credit, the guy didn't argue. He swallowed hard and turned back to his crew. "All right, fellas, let's call it a day." The cones were packed up. The mini excavator turned off, and the crew started filing back into the truck, throwing nervous glances over their shoulders at Linda. That's when she marched across the street like a toddler denied her favorite toy. "You can't do this," she hissed. I turned slowly. "Do what?" "Stop you from illegally excavating my yard." This was authorized by the HOA, and the HOA has no authority to order demolition on private property without city inspection. You're not a contractor. You're not even elected properly. That one hit her, because she knew it was true. The Desert Springs HOA hadn't held an election in years. She simply declared herself president and no one challenged her. Until now. She opened her mouth, then closed it. A few times, like a fish out of water. "You're disrespecting the community," she muttered, but it was weak. A whisper compared to the volume of her previous tantrums. I took a step closer, dropped my voice. "And you're trespassing into a fight you won't win." Her eyes flashed, but she didn't say another word. Just huffed, spun around, and stormed back into her house. Again, I stood there for a second, watching her retreat, thinking, that's it. She has to be out of tricks. But I was wrong, because Linda Carter had one last card to play, and this one was the dirtiest yet. 1 week later, I came home from a shift and found a thick envelope taped to my front door. Another HOA notice. Of course. But this one was different. Notice of disciplinary review, resident Raymond Walker. Due to repeated infractions and refusal to comply with community standards, the Desert Springs HOA will be initiating proceedings for residential revocation. Attendance at a mandatory hearing is required. I stared at the paper. They were trying to kick me out, evict me, from my own home. It was laughable. The HOA didn't own my house. They didn't control my mortgage. They didn't even legally have the power to evict anyone. Desert Springs wasn't a gated community, and this wasn't some condo association with property title rights. But still, there it was. A revocation notice, signed again by Linda Carter, in her signature oversized font. I laughed, loud, but it wasn't a happy laugh. It was the kind that comes when logic fails and absurdity wins. And then, almost like the universe was trolling me, my phone buzzed. Text from my neighbor Doug. Bro, just heard from Susan down the block. People are saying you're getting kicked out of the neighborhood. The smear campaign had begun. Suddenly, I wasn't just the guy who ignored the HOA. I was the enemy, the rebel, the one threatening the balance of community harmony, as Linda liked to put it in her reports. Even at the grocery store, a neighbor who'd never said more than 2 words to me leaned in and whispered like he was passing on Cold War secrets. Maybe you should consider moving, before things get worse. Oh, it was on now. Linda didn't want me gone because I broke rules. She wanted me gone because I didn't kneel. And if she thought a fake eviction letter would scare me, she was about to learn how hard I could hit back. They sent the summons on a Tuesday. Printed in bold, all caps, under the HOA header like it was the U.S. Constitution. Mandatory disciplinary meeting. For resident, Raymond Walker. Location, Desert Springs Community Center. Date, Friday, 7 p.m. Purpose, address ongoing violations and review potential revocation of residency. I read it twice, then a third time. It still didn't make sense. They were holding a trial, a neighborhood tribunal, and I was the defendant. I could have ignored it. The HOA didn't have any real teeth. But I decided to show up. Not for them. For me. Because if Linda Carter was going to play judge, jury, and executioner in front of the whole community, then I wanted a front row seat when her gavel snapped in half. Friday, 7 p.m., Community Center. The room was packed. Folding chairs lined up in rows like a courtroom drama. HOA members stood along the walls with clipboards and sanction binders. Neighbors I hadn't spoken to in months sat silently, many clutching the same letter I'd received. At the front of the room was a long folding table, the so-called tribunal, and at its center, wearing a navy blazer 3 sizes too bold, was Linda Carter, the president, the judge, the one-woman show. She shuffled her papers with the seriousness of someone preparing for a war crime trial. Her expression was stone, her lipstick, flaming red, her ego, practically glowing. We're here to address the continued disruptions and non-compliance of one Raymond Walker. She began, voice syrupy sweet, but razor sharp. I leaned back in my chair, arms folded, eyes locked. The defendant, she said, yes, she actually used that word, has refused to participate in community events, ignored repeated citations, removed official HOA postings, and has behaved inappropriately toward the governing board. Inappropriately? I raised an eyebrow. She was about to read out my sins like commandments. He obstructed emergency utility work. I raised my hand. Linda, that was a fake repair crew you sent to destroy my front lawn. Let's not rewrite history. Murmurs in the crowd. Linda snapped her head at me. You're out of order, Mr. Walker. I smiled. There is no order, Linda. This is a glorified potluck with folding chairs. Laughter. Actual laughter. Even from her loyal clipboard crew. Her eye twitched. She tried to recover. As president of the Desert Springs HOA, I have the authority to recommend revocation of residency for failure to maintain community standards. I leaned forward. Let me stop you right there. Silence. I pulled a folded stack of papers from my jacket and dropped them onto the table in front of her. This is a full list of HOA bylaws, Arizona HOA statutes, and homeowner protection laws. Nowhere does it say you have the power to evict a homeowner from private property. You don't own my house. You don't own my land. And this isn't a gated community with deed restrictions. You're overstepping. Linda's mouth opened. Closed. No words. So I kept going. You've impersonated law enforcement. Filed false reports. Ordered unauthorized construction. Harassed a public official. And now you're trying to exile a resident because he doesn't bow to your little neighborhood empire? Another ripple of gasps. Some neighbors started whispering. Others looked down at the letter in their hands like it had suddenly caught fire. I looked around the room. You all live here. You all pay dues. And most of you probably thought Linda was doing what's best. But ask yourselves, when was the last election? Were you given a voice? Someone in the back muttered, we never voted for her. Linda slammed her hand on the table. This is outrageous. This man is dangerous to the harmony of this neighborhood. The only danger, I said, is letting one person play dictator because no one bothered to challenge her. Dead silence. Linda looked at her tribunal. They looked at the floor. She turned to the crowd, expecting support. Nothing. She was alone, a queen without subjects. I stood up slowly. Gather my papers. This meeting's over, I said. And next time you try to destroy someone's life over a mailbox color or a missed cookout, remember, some of us fight back. I walked out. No applause. No cheers. Just silence. The kind that comes when reality crashes through delusion like a hammer through glass. Back home that night, Doug texted me again. Bro, that was the most savage takedown I've ever seen. You broke her. I didn't reply, because I knew Linda Carter wasn't done. People like her never stop when they're losing. They just start getting desperate. And desperate people, they're dangerous. After the HOA tribunal went up in smoke, most people would have quit, retreated, licked their wounds, maybe even apologized. But not Linda Carter. No, when tyrants fall, they don't surrender. They set fire to everything on the way down. A week passed in eerie quiet. No cones, no letters, no fake citations or clipboard spies pacing in front of my yard. Just stillness. Too still. And then, on a gray Wednesday morning, I woke up to sirens. Not one, not two. 4 county vehicles parked out front. Code enforcement trucks, a pest control van, and 2 men in hard hats reviewing blueprints. It looked like the opening scene of a crime show. I opened the door, still in my T-shirt, and found myself face-to-face with a middle-aged man holding a clipboard and a county badge. His voice was flat, professional. Morning, sir. We've received a formal complaint regarding structural violations on this property, unpermitted construction, irregular plumbing, and potential rodent infestation. We're here to conduct a full inspection. I raised an eyebrow. From who? He hesitated. The Desert Springs HOA. And just like that, I knew. This wasn't Linda's last straw. This was her nuclear button. She hadn't just lied to the police this time. She lied to the county. She wanted my house condemned. Wanted them to rip it out from under me. You got a warrant? I asked. For code inspection, not required under local ordinances. Civil authority. I exhaled. Looked past him. And who do I see? Linda, across the street again, pretending to water her bushes. She didn't even bother hiding this time. All right, I said, stepping aside. Let's get this over with. The inspectors filed in like a SWAT team of building nerds, measuring walls, tapping pipes, checking fuse boxes and crawl spaces. Every now and then I'd hear one whisper to another, looks clean, or that's code. Meanwhile, I brewed coffee and called a friend at County Legal, just in case. 2 hours later, one of the inspectors came out of the attic holding a clipboard, trying not to look awkward. Mr. Walker, we completed the inspection, and your home is fully compliant. Everything is permitted. No violations, no infestation, no plumbing issues. I smiled, sweet as syrup. So the report was false. He cleared his throat. Technically, yes. Great, I said, because I'm filing an official complaint for harassment, misuse of municipal resources, and falsified HOA reports. And I've got the name of the woman who signed it. The inspector blinked. Looked like he wanted to be anywhere else. And as I turned to walk back into the house, Linda came storming across the street like the devil just lost her lease. This is ridiculous, she snapped. I was just doing my civic duty. Interesting, I replied, because the county says my house is perfect. So either you lied, or you have no idea what a leak or pest even looks like. You're overreacting. No, I said, you're about to get investigated. I held up my phone, already dialing County Legal. For the first time in weeks, Linda Carter looked genuinely scared. Days later, the collapse. What started as a single complaint spiraled fast. Turns out, I wasn't the only one Linda had been targeting. Once the county opened a formal inquiry into Desert Springs, HOA's leadership, everything began to unravel. They found evidence that Linda had issued fines without cause to fund community events, which were really backyard wine parties for her friends, hired unlicensed contractors for public repairs, and paid them from the HOA emergency fund. Never organized elections, despite HOA bylaws requiring annual reconfirmation. And worst of all, she'd embezzled over $30,000 from HOA reserves over the last 2 years. The final nail in her self-built coffin? The HOA didn't even have legal standing to exist in its current form. All this time, Linda had been running a rogue HOA, a homemade empire of rules, punishments, and printed clipboards with zero backing from the county. They called a special emergency meeting. Linda showed up with a prepared speech and a silk scarf. But nobody was listening anymore. The board, what was left of it, voted unanimously to remove her from office. She tried to argue, screamed about lawsuits, threatened to sue everyone in the room. Then 2 officers walked in, real ones, with real handcuffs. She tried to walk out, but they stopped her at the door. As they cuffed her, one of the neighbors let out a loud, theatrical, "Well done, Linda." The crowd laughed. And just like that, the tyrant queen of Desert Springs was walked off the HOA stage, not with a gavel, but with a booking number. 1 month later, Linda sold her house, moved out of state. Rumor says she's trying to start over in some small town where no one knows her name. God help them. The new HOA board was voted in fairly. They canceled unjust fines, rolled back ridiculous rules, and posted a handwritten note at the neighborhood bulletin board. HOA exists to serve residents, not rule them. Peace returned. The cones were gone. The clipboard patrols stopped. The neighborhood started talking again, not whispering. And me? I park my truck however I want. Leave my garage door open if I feel like it. Pull my trash cans out a day early just for fun. And every time I walk past that empty house across the street, I smile. Because the lawn might be dead, but the dictatorship is buried.